Welcome to my YouTube channel, Dennis the Monk. I am Dennis Vyzhikovsky, former monk of 34 years. Today's topic is the courage to be you. It's really important for each one of us to look inside of ourselves and know, who are we? What is our life about? What are our dreams? What are my dreams? What are my aspirations? What does the best version of me look like? And when we go through that process of trying to understand ourselves, the next step is having the courage to express it out in public, and really for me to express it to the world. I remember I fell in love with a man. His name is Stephen Favreau, and I remember after the third day of being with him, I told him that I loved him, and he said, "Thank you," not knowing how to respond to me in the intensity of that moment. And 6 months later, in his family garage, I said, "Hey, will you marry me?" And he looked at me, looked at the surroundings. He likes the romantic stuff, and he said yes, hesitantly. And then 3 days later, he said, "You know what? You're not ready. Until you can shout from the mountaintops about who you are to me and who I am to you, you're not ready to get married." And he was right. Though I did tell him, next time I'm not asking again, it's going to be his. And about 9 months later, he asked me in the following June. And here we are engaged for 2 years. Anyways, I need to share with you my story, because I feel that in making myself vulnerable and sharing my story, perhaps I can give you courage to allow yourself to evolve to be truly who you are without worrying and being fearful of the world around you and what they're going to think or say. So a number of years ago, maybe 7 years ago, I came home on a Friday night, just happened to be alone, put the TV on, which was uncommon for me, and I saw Wayne Dyer. Now, I was familiar with Wayne Dyer. I know his story. I've never read his books, but I fundamentally know who he is and what he talks about. And he was interviewing Anita Mojani, I think her name is Anita Mojani. She's an Indian woman. She was dying of cancer, was brought into a hospital with her family. She had tumors in her body, and she came in on a gurney, her family around her, and the doctor said she had 2 hours to live. Wayne Dyer is introducing this woman who he just did not said this part of the story. She was giving 2 hours to live. Her organs were shutting down. And then on stage with Wayne Dyer sits Anita. And she shared her story, and I'm going to tell you the quick of it, and perhaps it's even my interpretation of what she said, but she was in a place of incredible peace, joy, and love. And my perception of her story was, it's mixed in with what she did say, is that she had no fear. And in her telling of the story, she shared that she recognized love all around her, and that she was also love, and that she was a spark of God. And in this place, she felt this ultimate freedom in recognizing who she is and being who she is. So Wayne Dyer is interviewing her and saying, "Okay, Anita," he didn't say, "Let's get to the point," but basically he was saying, "Let's get to the point. What do you bring back to us?" So she had this near-death experience, and Anita said, "I bring back this fearlessness to be me." At least that's what I heard her say. And I'll never forget that. I stood up in my living room with arms outstretched, and I said, "Okay, God, from this day forward, I will be fearless to be me." And it was a journey, and I'm still on that journey, even though it was 6 or 7 years ago. A week prior to that, I just went through this process of sharing with a close friend of mine my deepest, darkest secrets, my fear that captured me and caused shame, guilt, and remorse my whole life. And what I shared was my experience of being sexually abused and raped by two clergymen. And I was so afraid of telling that part of my story. It was only 7 years ago, and it started when I was 13 years old. So it's the first time I'm telling this. It was a 3-hour experience of weeping and pain and sorrow, but when I was done, I felt no more fear. I was astonished. And I felt this freedom I felt this burden lift off my shoulders. And my journey began. And then the following week, I saw Wayne Dyer and heard Anita, and then said out from this day forward, I'll be fearless to be who I am. I'll be fearless to be me. The topic of this presentation is the courage to be you. Hear me. When I was in high school, I was bullied. In my monastery, I experienced bullying as well. And although my life wasn't in danger, I experienced a lot of abuse. As I tried to help my monastery to grow out of the place of poverty that we were in, to gain, to create businesses for the monastery, I developed a skincare line, and I'm telling the story here. I can't believe I'm doing this, but L'Oreal stole 2 of my patents. And 2 weeks before I was launching my launching my product, and I was supposed to be in Women's Wear Daily, the cover of a national trend-setting fashion design magazine that would put me in the forefront of an industry with the cutting-edge technology that's never been out, which was developed by Dr. James Dobson, who was a cardiovascular physiologist at the University of Massachusetts, little detail. And when L'Oreal 2 weeks prior launched their product, they had my cover story. I lost everything. My sales went down incredibly. I slowly couldn't pay bills. My monastery was out. I couldn't pay my mortgage for 4 years, unheard of. I've had miracles in that whole process, and I found purpose and meaning in everything that I went through. However, it still affected me deeply. Knowing or believing or being afraid that God would abandon me, my home would be taken away from me, and my sanctuary, which was my chapel, would be taken away because I had to go through this process of trying to sell the monastery to gain the money that I needed to pay the mortgage. But my lender let it go for 4 years, and I worked very closely with them and was responsible and accountable. But this is what also happened to me. I was triggered. I struggled, and I'm only coming up to understand this more, I struggled with PTSD that happened from school and being bullied, and then what happened to me in my monastery, and then what's happened with what L'Oreal has done, because they took everything away from me by them stealing what they had. I could barely survive. I didn't have money for food. Why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because in order for us to have courage to be us, to be me, in order for me to be fearless, to be me, to have the courage to be me, I have to be willing to share my story. Now, the challenge that I also have in sharing my story is I'm autistic. And when I get overwhelmed, I shut down. And there's been several times where I've gone into almost like a catatonic state. And I didn't realize that I can work with that. And I told, and it once happened with Stephen, and I told him I'd never allow it to happen again or do my best. And what I found myself needing to do is when I'm in the most intense pain and want to shut down, I force myself to say anything, say something, because I need to get it out of me so that I don't crumble in on myself. And I'm finding I'm going to counseling right now for this PTSD and the challenges I'm having. And it's overwhelming at times. And at times I weep, but it's all part of the process. But this is what I do know. This is what I want you to know. You and I, we're beautiful inside. Our souls and our spirits are incredibly beautiful. And for them to shine and for us to overcome whatever it is that we need to overcome, we need to be fearless to be who we are. we need to have the courage to tell our story to the right people, of course, but here I am doing this the way I am, but we need to be willing to tell our story to the right people so that slowly but surely the story loses power over us. And then we gain access in something that was traumatic or a deficit, as I look at it, becomes an asset because as we grow out of that pain and struggle, we gain incredible amounts of strength. We gain incredible amounts of power, and God blesses us all the more. I know in my life and everything that I've gone through, God loves me so much that they allowed these things to happen. I can say that for me, and I can say it for no one else. But in saying it for me, I know this. I am the man I am today that can sit here on YouTube and share my story with you and have the courage to do this because of my past that God allowed me to go through. God never left me, and I never turned my back on God. I never blamed God. I sometimes wondered why, but never blamed them for what happened to me. And now, because of that past, I can share my story with you. Each one of us have our struggles. Each one of us suffer in varying degrees from whether it be PTSD or trauma or whatever it is. And we're afraid to tell the stories. We're afraid to remember. The flashbacks alone are sometimes crippling. Think of soldiers men and women who endured the atrocities of war and what they go through in the fear and the flashbacks. We need each other. In order to have relationship with other people, we need to be vulnerable. When two people are vulnerable and share their stories, that's how friendship develops. True friendship. Friends of the soul and the heart. That's how everything begins. And that's where the miracles occur. When we can run to truth as quickly as possible, even if it's about ourselves, and then do the best to change and make those changes. And slowly but surely we learn and we gain the tools to be fearless, to be who we are. You have the ability within you to be an amazing person. So I want to share with you the courage to be you. A soldier goes into war, and he or she, when they go into battle, they're the most vulnerable we can ever be, the potential loss of our life. That you can't tell me that they're not afraid, but courage pushes us beyond the fear to still do what's the right thing, what we're supposed to do, not according to society, but what our heart and mind is calling us to do and what our commitments and our responsibilities are calling us to do. I'm sharing my story so that you can someday share your story because you have a beautiful story inside of you. I'm sharing this because I have to. In order for me to be the best version of myself, I have to be willing to make this sacrifice. I need to be willing to endure the pain, even when talking about it, so that I can be free of it. And here I am. And sharing this with you, I'm already feeling the experience of the freedom of not holding in secrets and letting the world, even if the world is only my best friend or my fiance, soon to be husband, or my dog, doesn't matter, but to get it out through our lips into this real world and the physical world. I can't say trust me because you may not know me, but I tell you this, if you take these steps one by one, you will become the best version of yourself. You will find the ability to take risks that you've never taken, but those risks have the ability to transform your life into your dreams, because the universe collaborates to make our dreams come true. God collaborates to make our dreams come true, but we have to be willing to confront truth and walk towards it, whatever it is, with accountability and responsibility. I've talked about the heart, the mind, the spirit, and the soul. The mind, where the ego sits, tells us we're less than or better than. But the heart is the place of objective love and objective truth. And when we can get rid of the thoughts in our heads that lie to us and move into our hearts, then it's the process of becoming the best version of ourselves. Because there in our heart we hold ourselves accountable and responsible because we confront with life with objective truth and objective love, knowing what that looks like. And it gives us all we need, gives us everything, because there we sit with God or the universe, or whatever you want to call that higher power, that enables us to be who we're called to be, the best version of me and the best version of you. I am Dennis Vysokovsky, and this is my YouTube channel, Dennis the Monk, and I want to share my life with you so that you can share your life with other people. Please come back next week, same time, same channel, same mustache. And I did this because I woke up this way, and I figured I got to take the risk of being where I am, who I am, and looking different for just today. Sending you my love and prayers, and please send yours to me, and let's make a difference in this world. I know we can, and I know you can. Thanks for joining me.